Welcome everyone. My name is Erin. My pronouns are she, her, and I am the Student Recruitment Officer for UBC Engineering. So my job is to support all of you who are incoming to UBC Engineering, to support you through that process, to help answer your questions, to make you feel welcome to the community. And so that is what our first live Q&A session today is all about. So we have a few of these sessions coming up throughout the next few months. And really it's your opportunity to hear a little bit more from some of our current students and their experiences. I do want to mention that we are joining you from the Vancouver campus, which is located on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territory of the Musqueam people. And I do also want to recognize the caretakers and of the lands that you are joining us from. So welcome to the session. We're going to be discussing the co-op student experience in UBC Engineering. Including some of the current students that you see on screen right now. They're going to share their own experiences with you. You are welcome to use the chat to ask questions. We're going to get started with some of those questions that were submitted in advance through the registration form, but you are welcome to ask your questions about the co-op student experience in the chat, and we will get to some of those. So before I go into too much detail about the co-op program, I have 3 current students with me today, and I will get them to do a quick introduction of themselves so you know who's here. So Megan, if I could get you to go first.
Thanks, Erin. Hi, everyone. My name is Megan. I use the pronouns she, her, and hers, and I'm going into my 5th and hopefully final year of chemical and biological engineering here at UBC. I guess a fun fact about me, I'm originally from Sudbury, Ontario, which is a small mining town, and I made the decision to move across the country and attend UBC Engineering.
Awesome. And Katrin.
Hi, everyone. My name is Katrin. I go by she, her, and I'm a 4th year student in the geological engineering program. I am also from a small town in central Canada, but I'm from Manitoba originally, just outside of Winnipeg.
Awesome. And Kira.
Hi, I'm Kira. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm a 4th year biomedical engineering student. And as of now, I've lived in 3 big Canadian cities.
Awesome. Thank you. Welcome, everyone. We are here today, as I mentioned, to talk about the UBC Engineering Co-op program, which enhances students' education with paid, relevant technical work experience and can help launch your engineering career. Co-op is an optional program at UBC that students can apply into at the start of their 2nd or 3rd year. And students in the co-op program will gain up to 20 months of paid work experience, which could be counted towards up to 1 year of work credit towards your engineer in training required hours before you're eligible to go through the process to get your professional engineering designation. Some of the top employers from Co-op include Intel, SAP, Tech Resources, Ballard Power Systems, Stantec, Canfor, Stem Cell Technologies, PCL Construction, Shell Canada, Tesla, and so much more. That's just a small listing of some of the companies our students will work for. At UBC Engineering, about 55% of our students are in the co-op program. The minimum requirements to be accepted are to have a minimum of a 65% average. You need to demonstrate strong written and verbal communication skills, demonstrate co-op career motivation, maturity, professionalism, and readiness for growth. You may be asked to show a willingness to relocate for co-op work terms, but many of them are located right in Vancouver as well. And about 70 to 75% of our applicants to the co-op program are usually accepted into co-op every year. So I do get a lot of questions. Is it super competitive to get into the co-op program? So it's not, we're really looking for students that are ready and are going to be able to do that kind of switching between work and school and be able to do well in that. So we do have quite a bit of our students in that co-op program. Again, it is optional. And the good news is that if you're coming into 1st year, you don't even need to think about applying to the co-op program until towards the beginning of your 2nd year. So you have lots of time to decide if that is the program for you. I'm going to add a link to the co-op program in the chat for some of those requirements. You can check that out if you have any other questions. But let's get into more of the student experience now that the basics about entry to the program are covered. So Katrin, I'm going to start with you. Could you please share a little bit about what your co-op jobs have been like so far?
Yeah, so my first co-op experience, my first 4 months was actually right after the start of COVID. So I'm in geological engineering, like I said. Unfortunately, my position with that wasn't really geological related, but it was very good for, doing work at home and having flexible learning and work experience. So I'm very grateful for that. It was my employees were super awesome. It was like a startup company in North Vancouver. So very accommodating. I just want to give a shout out to them because they were awesome. But for more relevant experience, I did work up at Site C, which is the clean energy project, the hydroelectric dam in Fort St. John, which is northern BC for those who aren't from BC like me. So I worked there for 8 months on this dam doing work with the geology team. So the long-term plan for this project is to bring renewable energy to the continuously growing metropolis that is Vancouver greater area. So we focused on longevity of the dam, and just working with the geology team was super awesome. I got field work experience. I got to work with a close knit team, and I did a fly in, fly out, which is where you go fly up for 2 weeks or 1 week, and then you fly back and you have that whole entire week or two off, and then you fly back again and do that for your whole rotation. So I did that for 8 months, and just at the start of January, I started working with the new company called Golder, or WSP now. They've been bought out, and I'm doing a consulting work. They're a geotechnical consulting company, and I've had lots of experience with office environment. I worked in the lab for 5 weeks, and this summer I'm very excited, but I'm going to be flying up to Yukon and doing some field experience work again on a mine up there. So I'm really looking forward to that.
Very cool, and really highlights all of those different types of engineering jobs that you can have, of working in an office, working in the field, and doing all of those different things, so that you get to decide what it is that you want to do when you graduate and what type of work it is that you're most interested in. Thanks for sharing.
Thank you.
So Megan, we mentioned that students take up to 20 months of work experience. That's typically split up into work terms of usually 4 months, 8 months, or 12 months long. You can, like Katrin, do kind of subsequent work terms all at once. But tell us a little bit more, Megan, about what your work terms have been like.
Yeah, of course. So similar to Katrin, I started my first co-op position right as COVID hit in the summer of 2020. I was really fortunate that I was still able to work, and I was able to get a both online work from home and in-person experience. And I worked for 4 months for the UBC Building Operations Waste Management team. So essentially, I worked with a lot of the staff and other engineers to come up with a better way to collect waste of organic waste on campus. If you didn't know, UBC has an on-campus composting unit. So we actually collect all of the food waste from our campus and we send it there. So I was working with them to come up with more environmentally friendly and more efficient ways of collecting that waste. And then from there, I actually went to Fortis BC, which is a natural gas supplier here in British Columbia. I also did not know that they existed until I moved out here. And I was supposed to be there for 8 months, but I actually got extended and I ended up working there for 12 months. A lot of my classmates and friends do usually do 4 8-month terms. So the fact that I was able to get extended for 12 months, not that that's not common, but that does sometimes happen as well. So there's a lot of flexibility in how long your co-op terms are. Mine just happened to be a 4-month and a 12-month. A lot of my friends do 8 months and 8 months, or they do a full 16-month co-op. But I was really fortunate to be able to extend my co-op at Fortis so that I was able to work longer with my team, get more experience, especially because at that point I had already been pretty integrated into the group, and I was able to start doing engineer in training level work, which was a really good experience, at least for me.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing that as well. And Kira, tell us a little bit more about what your co-op experience has been like so far.
Yeah, so my first co-op was a 4-month co-op in the summer of 2021. And like Katrin, my first co-op position was a little more unrelated to my program, but I was working for a company that puts on high school STEM workshops. And I was able to learn a lot of new skills, especially in like software data science and programming, to make content for their workshops. And then my second co-op was my current position, which is a 12-month co-op at a vaccine company. And I'm doing analytical testing in their R&D department. And I really enjoyed getting a lot of hands-on experience and just learning a lot about how the whole industry works.
There is a question in the chat. So a reminder that you can also all ask your questions in the chat and we will try to get to as many as we can. So maybe Kira, you can speak to this question a little bit. So the question is, are work days and hours in co-op basically the same as for regular workers? So maybe you can mention kind of your experience, and then maybe I'll get Katrin to explain a little bit more about some of those kind of site work hours and things.
So all co-op positions are full-time work positions. So generally, it does have to be close to a 40-hour work week. But depending on the nature of the role, like if you're remote, that can often be more flexible. But yeah, I guess it depends on the role. Like for in-person, often they would want you there at a set schedule.
Awesome. Katrin, do you want to explain a little bit more about like what your site work looked like? What were your hours kind of like for that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think this is kind of normal for site work, but it's based on how busy it is when you're on shift. So the expected is about 10 hours, but if it's a busy day, you can be working 12. They kind of cap it at 12, but maybe 13 hours a day. They try to have it so it's not too many days in a row, because especially for co-op students, that it's kind of limited, but they do make that very clear that sometimes there might be a day or two where you do have to work 12 hours. But fortunately, if you have a good team, they'll make sure you have lots of rest breaks and you have your lunch in there. And honestly, it goes by really quickly when you're out in the field. And again, depending on what kind of shift rotation you're working, you might work the entire week straight, like I did, but sometimes you might have the weekends off or Sunday off or something like that. So it's kind of dependent on what site you are, but the standard is you do work more than if you were in the office, because you're doing that shift rotation where you fly in and then you have that week or 2 weeks off when you go back home.
Yes, awesome. So lots of different options. There's not necessarily a specific consistent schedule, but if you're working in an office, typically you're working, like Kira said, 40 hours, probably 8:30 to 4:30, 9 to 5-ish, something in there. And then if you're working site work, it can be more like Katrin explained, where you might be working long weeks, long hours in that week, but then you will have likely close to a full week off kind of in those in-between periods or more, depending on that schedule. And those are all things that when you're applying to jobs will be very clear, and you'll have a good sense of what that particular job you're applying to will look like. The next question that we have is, there was a question about, do you get paid for co-op? And I do want to be explicit that yes, our students get paid. They get paid quite well. You can expect that a lot of the students will get paid around starting at like about $3,000-ish a month to up to $5,000 a month, or sometimes more or less depending on kind of what that specific job is, but that's kind of the typical average spread for students. And that's per month. So again, you're working a minimum usually of 4 months at a time. So you do make good money as part of the co-op program. There is a fee to participate in co-op program that I will mention. It is about the cost of a normal course. So if you were registered in a course, that's about $700 to $800, and that's about the cost of the co-op program, because there are a lot of resources available to you. So looking at, so Katrin, I'll go back to you, but what were some of the resources that maybe you've accessed through the co-op program that have helped you out? And that's, again, showing why there is a fee for that. There's lots of resources available. Maybe you can speak to kind of maybe what your favorite resources have been from the co-op program.
Yeah, so they have these cover letter and resume kind of outlines, and you can go on that resume. I forget what it's called, but you kind of put your resume into this program, and it goes through like an automatic computer thing, and it like gives back advice and like a rating on your resume, and it shows how you can improve in like your grammar, the way you formatted it, and just things like that. So I think that's super invaluable. I've used that tool a lot, and just getting to see some examples of cover letters that are specifically relevant to what program you're in, and rather than just Googling a generic cover letter, is also super helpful. And you get super quick replies from your co-op advisor also. Like if you need to book an in-person appointment or one over Zoom, you can do that within like a few days. And if you email them, they usually respond within less than 24 hours. So I think just having that person-to-person assistance is also super helpful. And yeah, they're always great to go for help. So
Awesome. Thanks for sharing that. So yeah, our co-op advisors are really amazing. They're there to support our students throughout that whole process. Megan, a question that maybe you can speak to a little bit about what you think about UBC Engineering's co-op program. So there was a question about what sets UBC's co-op program out from other universities. What makes our program more outstanding? So maybe you can kind of speak to what you love about the program, and yeah.
Wow, yeah, that's quite the loaded question. And I also see someone's asking me why I chose to come to UBC over Ontario universities. So one thing, at least this is my point of view from the chemical engineering aspect of co-op, because it is dependent on what discipline that you're in, what type of jobs are available. But I found personally through my experience with co-op is that there are just so many companies that you're able to go work at as a chemical engineering student. And obviously that's the same for every other discipline as well. There's so many jobs that are available. There's so many needs in British Columbia. There's a lot of software positions. Obviously there's mining, as Katrin was talking about, and geological needed stuff. And at least for myself, as a chemical engineer, there's so many different industries that I can go work in that the program here at UBC allows me to go and do. So having that flexibility of kind of having my choice of what industry I want to go work in has been like really nice and helpful. And the program and the education that I'm getting in the chemical engineering department and program has really been complemented well by what jobs are available through the UBC Co-op office. I can't speak to other universities. I actually didn't know co-op existed until I came to UBC. That was maybe a mistake on my part for not looking into that before. But the program here has really been giving me a lot of opportunities to learn and get that hands-on experience that you don't necessarily get in the classroom, and to apply what I've been learning in a more hands-on, applicable, real-life world experience. So there's just so many options in BC, and even there's so many of my classmates went to other provinces and even other countries for co-op as well. That's another option too. So you're not limited to just British Columbia. I should also throw that out there.
Yeah, that's a great point as well, that we have co-op opportunities throughout BC, throughout the rest of Canada, throughout the US, international locations as well. We have a really cool program called the Coordinated International Exchange as well, or Coordinated International Experience. And that allows you to actually go study abroad at other institutions. One of those study abroad terms can actually count towards fulfilling one of your co-op work terms as well. So there's really a lot of opportunity to go abroad and get more than just that work experience, but get that experience throughout different industries, throughout working with different types of people, working in different locations, and all of that. I do see a lot of questions coming in, kind of wondering about like what that sort of schedule works like, of how do you manage a job while you're in school. So I am going to share a link to the co-op schedule so that you can kind of see. For the most part, students are not doing any courses while they're on their co-op work term. So co-op will extend your degree by about a year so that you can fit in that work experience. But Kira, maybe you want to talk a little bit more for us about like how many terms have you been in courses for, and then how many terms at a time are you on co-op for, and kind of talk about that, kind of how things fluctuate throughout your degree.
Mm-hmm. So I've finished 3 full years of school, and I've done 1 year and 4 months of co-op. So for biomedical engineering students, our schedule puts an entire 16 months of co-op between like your third year of classes and your fourth year of classes, but I know it's also different depending on your discipline. Although the schedule, you can also request to get it changed if you do have a need, or if you want to have a certain arrangement for your classes. But I found it to be pretty flexible overall, and you also have the option of taking 4-month co-ops, 8 months, or 12 months. So it's really up to you how long you want to stay in a certain role, kind of.
Awesome, thank you. And I did just add that link. So when you go to that work term schedule page, you will be able to select the discipline that you're looking at. So maybe you're thinking of a few different disciplines. You can see what that kind of recommended schedule looks like and how that would work for you. Katrin, maybe if you could help answer this. I see that there's some questions in the chat that have kind of popped up related to this that you've kind of answered a little bit of already, but can you tell us a little bit more about how a student goes about deciding what sort of jobs they're going to apply for, and how you get to pick what jobs you may eventually end up working in?
Yeah, so everyone in the co-op program has access to what is called the job portal, and it basically has a bunch of jobs that the co-op office has found that would be, interesting, or specific positions towards students. You can go in there and specify it to your program, or, if I'm in geological, but I want to look at a mining job, I can also look at the mining section, or whatever. And so within that, you can see jobs that are specific to what your interest could be. They also have a description, and you go in and you read the description. So if you find one and it's a site job and you're like, oh, no, I don't want to go up to site, you don't have to apply to it. You can go for something else like research experience or consulting work or something in a biomedical lab, along with that, you don't have to stay within the job portal. You can look outside of it and go on, what are those sites called? I don't know, LinkedIn jobs, or just you can go on website specific. Like for my company Golder, I went on their specific website and applied within their job thing. So it's totally up to you. Read the description, determine if you're willing to relocate or not relocate, and yeah, just apply if you think that's something you'd be interested in learning.
Awesome, thanks for sharing. So yeah, there really is a lot of opportunity in terms of looking for those jobs and what is interesting to you. There's a few questions coming in about, are there only certain types of jobs offered? I will say there are hundreds of co-op jobs. We have thousands of students in the co-op program. So there are jobs being posted for our students that are a variety of different topics, from research to field work to regular in the office engineering work that you kind of may think of. So there's lots of different options there. I'm gonna scan through and see. There was a great question. So I'm gonna ask this question to Megan, but kind of thinking of, looking back at your co-op experience so far, you're getting towards the end of your degree. What sort of piece from co-op has maybe stood out most to you throughout your program, or what is the thing that you think you'll take away from your co-op experience?
Yeah, so I guess starting off, I chose to do co-op for like a couple different reasons. One was to get that work experience. I was already involved in design teams on campus and had some other part-time jobs, but I really wanted to get some technical industrial experience, industry experience before I graduated, just to kind of get a better understanding of what is out there and my interests. And by doing co-op, I was able to get a lot more of those technical skills that are needed when going out into the field. When I was on co-op at Fortis BC, for example, I actually did a lot of site visits where I did a lot of stakeholder engagement, worked with other engineers and people within the company. So having that experience was really valuable in going forward and looking at what I wanted to do, and was extremely vital in helping me get a position for when I graduate. I've actually already accepted a job for when I graduate, and I'd have to say that co-op has been very helpful in helping me be successful and finding that job. I do have to say I have friends who haven't done co-op and have gotten jobs after they graduate. So don't worry, oh, I don't want to do co-op. Am I going to find a job? You will. There will always be jobs. But I know for at least myself, it's helped me understand better for what I want to do in the future as a career. I want to do more project engineering and management versus a lot of the technical details. And by doing co-op, I was able to understand that and learn about that interest, but then also get the experience in order to be competitive when applying for jobs when I graduate. So that was my biggest takeaway, and something that I found that was really helpful for my career doing the co-op program here at UBC.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. Just scanning through the questions, I think we've answered a lot of them. If you are looking for anything more detail, again, that co-op website really has a lot of great resources and a lot of great specifics. There were a few questions about engineering physics, so I did add a link into the chat. I'll just add it generally into the chat as well. So engineering physics is a little bit of a special case because engineering physics is actually a joint program with the Faculty of Applied Science and the Faculty of Science. The co-op program for engineering physics is offered through the Faculty of Science Co-op. So I'm just going to add that link in here so you can see that. Co-op is built into the engineering physics program. So the engineering physics program is a 5-year program because it expects you to do that co-op as part of it. It is still not officially a requirement to graduate, but most students will do that. And that's kind of part of the reason a lot of students will go into engineering physics. So you can check that out. Co-op still offered, still a lot of the same amazing job opportunities offered for engineering physics students. It's just the way that it's administered is just a little bit different. All right, so we are coming to the end of our time. I think we've answered a lot of questions. So huge thank you to all of you for joining us. Huge thank you to Megan, Katrin, and Kira for sharing their experiences with us. And I do hope that this session was able to give you a bit of insight into the co-op experience. Before we wrap up, I do want to ask if there's a piece of advice that each of you would have given yourself if you were in the shoes of our incoming students. So thinking way, way, way back to when you're deciding if UBC engineering was the right program for you, what sort of advice would you have wanted to hear? So Kira, I'll get you to go first.
I'd say in general, I would tell myself to be open to opportunities and experiences, even if they might not be what you initially envisioned. I know, for example, just in my co-op job search, there's been times where I've been disappointed that I didn't get a certain position, but then later on, I found a role that actually fit what I wanted to do more. So often, even if there's one opportunity that's closed, there may be another one that's open.
Wonderful. And Katrin.
Yeah, I would kind of say the same thing as Kira, is just be open-minded about what is offered to you and keep an open mind. I think I wrote down here, try new things that you aren't expecting that you would necessarily be interested in, because you never know, you might really like it, but also learning if you don't like something is also valuable. And worst case scenario, it's just a thing you can put on your resume or have on your mental experience and say, I grew from that. So just try different things that you think you would normally try, I guess.
Definitely. And there are so many things to try at UBC Engineering. I think that's what a lot of students love, is that there's just so much opportunity available. And Megan.
All right. I'd back up what Kira and Katrin were saying, have an open mind, try new things. I think, as I mentioned before, coming to UBC, I didn't know that the co-op program existed. I don't know how I didn't know that it existed. And I also didn't know that design teams were a thing. And I ended up being a part of one for 4 years and really defined my university experience. So be open to try new things, take those opportunities that come your way, but also have fun. You're coming to UBC to get a really top-notch education, which is extremely important when choosing which university to go to. But I've had such a blast here at UBC, and I think it's really important to consider what's going to make you the happiest and give you the best university experience in addition to education, because you're going to be here for 4 or 5 years, which doesn't seem like a while, but it does. It will significantly impact your life. So have fun and work hard.
Perfect. So thank you to the 3 of you for joining us on this panel to share your student experience. A huge thank you to all of our attendees today for joining. And hopefully this gave you some more information about what our co-op program is like, what that student experience is like. Before you go today, I do want to mention that you can connect with our students here today, as well as many other students through our chat with a student feature. So I'll add that into the chat, but you can continue the conversation after today and learn more about our students here today, but also we have about 20 other students that you can chat with who have been involved in co-op, who have been involved in different extracurriculars, who have been involved in or are part of different programs. So there's lots of opportunity to send them a message, ask them more about their experiences. You can read their little bio that they have on there to see what they've been a part of so far. And you can start a chat with them to learn more and kind of start that conversation with some of our current students before you even get to UBC. So thank you all so much for joining today. Have a great rest of your evening. And I look forward to see you at some of our upcoming events throughout the rest of the spring. Thank you to our panelists. Again, a huge thank you for spending your evening with us.